Hello there, beautiful human. Melinda Joy, Crossroads Storyteller here with a video response. Every month on my channel, I share a collective tarot story and 7 tapping videos to help us all step into our most true selves. So if you enjoy tarot and or tapping, you would enjoy also subscribing to my channel. And today I am responding to Sorsha Soaring, and the hashtag is pacing the tarot. Now, I absolutely admire Sorsha so much. I just so appreciate how intentional she is with her words. I think as anyone who is interested in magic or witchery or magicianhood or anything adjacent to those concepts could use a lot of like their practice could benefit from being intentional with words. And so I think Sorsha is such a good model of what that looks like to be practiced at being intentional with words. Okay. So to continue, oh yes, okay, I'm just going to continue to gush. So I also really appreciate this hashtag for all of the reasons Sorsha described regarding her intentions of inclusivity and intentionality with our decks. And then in addition to that, I'm just really stoked to have a chance to look through my collection for the decks that sort of got left behind and that I don't want to leave behind. And so I think it's possible that this could be a reoccurring hashtag, like once a year style thing. We'll see how that unfolds, but like, yeah, I'm into this. So the first question is least used deck. So all of the decks I chose are not very used because I have the intention of working with more of my decks through this hashtag. And so that's one of my unique, specific to me parameters that I'm using. So I got this tarot, Persephone Tarot Tricolor Edition. I believe Circo Tarot is not the name of the person, but the name that the creative name that this author, creator, yes, see, circotarot.com. Here we go, though. Marissa de la, I know that I'm not supposed to pronounce that N the normal way because of the fun accent, but I'm not sure which way it is. But yes, there you have her info in case you're interested in finding her. I don't believe this deck is in print anymore, but that doesn't mean that you can't find it if it's meant for you. And I got this deck. Let's see, when was it? I think it was probably, oh, maybe this has a date. Oh yeah, 2018. So this was the very first pre-order deck I think, at least my very first pre-order tarot deck. And I was thrilled because I so appreciate the Persephone, Demeter story, myth, and all of the delicious goodness found in all mythology, but also the Greek mythology that I'm a little bit more familiar with than other mythologies. And yeah, I was just so stoked to obtain the deck. And then when I did, I wasn't sure how to read it. At that point in my practice, I was entirely self-trained. And so what I had learned from primarily was Ellen Lorenzi Prince's deck, Tarot of the Crone, and the guidebook that she made to go along with it, which is a brilliant guidebook. And it was a brilliant deck to learn on. You know, it's not the most traditional Rider-Waite-Smith or Thoth or Marseille, but it so met my needs so perfectly. So yeah, this deck didn't work with that system, and I was in my Saturn return, and I was confused and struggling and learning a whole new deck that didn't already work with the paradigm I was using. Just felt like a little bit too much to handle. But I still thought it was incredibly beautiful. And I have pulled it out a couple of times just to do like a spread that someone has created and made available to me, you know, like for the new moon or something. But I definitely have not worked with it in any kind of personal way. And so I'm just, oh, right. So the second follow-up question is, what is one thing you can do to change that I haven't been using it, should I wish to? Because no assumptions made. And I do want to work with it more. So what I'm going to do is I recently learned a practice from two people I admire, like in the same week. Coleman with the Dark Exact, and Natalie with a tarot storyteller. Both taught me in the same week a very similar process of pulling 3 cards and telling a story with them. And so I think I would enjoy practicing or exploring that particular style of exploring the cards with this deck. And like I mentioned before, maybe like the 2 or 3 times I have used this deck was with a spread that someone created for a particular astrology situation. And so I still do those kinds of spreads, especially on my Instagram, just to have something fun to share on my story and to encourage people to use the tarot decks they have for themselves and to learn tarot for themselves. And so yeah, I'm going to make this one of the decks that is more present in my mind as an option for doing that. Oh, I remember receiving this card and being like, damn, that's not what I wanted to hear. I'm excited. Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll even have a chance to sort of reacquaint myself with some of my Saturnian return cycle experiences that maybe I didn't integrate all the way or appreciate all the way or something like that, because I'm already getting those vibes. Like, I'm already remembering that time period when I first obtained this deck. How exciting. It feels good in my body. Thank you, Sorsha. Okay. Oh, maybe I'll make this so it's sort of kind of hint of where we've been. Okay, so the second deck is an oldie but a goodie, also known as a deck that's had its quote-unquote 15 minutes of fame. Oh, I did that quote wrong, but that's okay. It has the same general meaning. So I interpreted this one a little bit more literally than I think maybe Sorsha meant, and a little bit more personally than at least Sorsha did for herself. But that's fine. So I chose the tarot coloring book, and this coloring book, there's several coloring books out there, but this one has all 78 cards which was what I wanted, because when I got this in, let's see, I think it was 2020, I had just gotten pregnant, and brain frog, oh man, I keep trying to say brain fog and saying brain frog. If you know what it is about my tongue that makes that happen, let me know in the comments. Okay, so I had a lot of brain fog, and studying a tarot deck did not feel accessible, but coloring a tarot card did feel accessible. And at this time, I also got the BOTA's color deck also, and I did do several cards with that one, and I really enjoyed that. But the reason why I didn't do more in this coloring book is because I was deep in perfectionism, and I wanted so badly to just one time through color this coloring book, have immaculate images that were racially inclusive, and sort of playing off of lots of traditional colors and things like that, but being a little bit more modern in the representation of the people. And it was going to be perfect, and then I was going to scan it, and then I was going to make a tarot deck. But I think that was a little bit too much pressure, and what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to experiment with a bunch of different ways of using color, and a bunch of different ways of like styles of coloring, and see if there is a particular style that just lights me up so much that I want to color each and every card in that style. And if that happens, I think that's a pretty good cue to then try out the previously mentioned project of coloring in the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery and making something that is possible to print as a usable deck. But yeah, the whole point being play. So assuming that I want to change that this tool has waned in my practice, the follow-up question is, what do I want to do to change that? I'm going to change it by experimenting and getting curious about color and style and practicing play. That's how I'm going to step back into enjoying getting to know the cards via coloring. And that'll just be like so much less pressure, like so much more possible. Okay, we'll see. That's sort of big. We'll see if that gets in the way. I think it will. Okay, already reassessing. So the last deck in this Pacing the Tarot is a deck that makes you reassess. So the Minoan Tarot makes me reassess because the deck is prioritizing art and images and symbols from the ancient Minoan time period over stereotypical tarot images. So like, see, we obviously have a chariot for the chariot, even though, you know, they're fun mystical creatures that aren't sphinxes, which is super fine. Those are like super on theme. And we have the Strength card, which is a lady with a lion, because in Minoan art, a light-skinned person represented as light-skinned is how they clarify that that person is a female. And individuals with darker skin in their art is how they represented maleness, which is fun because there's the Fool in this deck is a sort of blended color. So it's, oh, here it is. Of course it showed up as I was talking about it. And so the idea is this like queering of gender, and that's super awesome too. Okay, so, but like here we have the Hierophant, which is sort of more different than stereotypical imagery of the tarot system. And of course, in normal Ellen Lorenzi Prince style, all of the court cards are different and have different emphasis, and all of the major arcana are not necessarily named the same thing as a historical system. And yeah, it makes me reassess tarot. But then it also makes me reassess society and culture in ways that I really appreciate us reassessing, and like my priorities and my values based off of that society and cultural expectation and influence in my life. Okay, so what I can do, or what is something I can do about this deck if I want to. So what I want to do about this deck is I want to incorporate it into my daily practice. Oftentimes I choose one or two decks. If I choose two decks, they're usually a tarot and an oracle deck. I don't usually do two of tarot or two of oracle, but I'll usually do one deck at a time, and I pull one card at a time in a fashion so that in 78 days I've gone through each and every card so that there's no repeats. And then after that, I assess how I want to incorporate that deck further into my practice, if I do at all. And so I have already read the guidebook several times for this deck, and done some other sort of like shorter get to know you practices with this deck. And so I'm excited to do this more extensive, more thorough get to know this deck and get to know this culture a little bit more also. Okay, so that's all of it. All three decks that have been in my collection for a longer period of time, comparable to when I started collecting decks more seriously or intensely, or whatever word you would like to use to describe that experience. And all of these decks are also decks that I'm really excited to work with more than I have been. And I'm super excited to have this hashtag to facilitate pacing my tarot practice. So much love. Oh, also, all of my added things. Okay, so if you care to find me on social media, book a tarot reading, or tip me, send me gratitude, you can do all of that in a single link below. And if you enjoyed this, please like it. And you may also enjoy some other VRs, including my 10 decks for 10 Sephirot and circular decks and some other fun VRs. Okay, so much love.